Hi, I'm John Sweeney, the Director of Stewardship Development at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church, and I'm standing next to the John Wesley stained glass window here at the church, right outside the prayer chapel, just outside the sanctuary. The church is quiet, as it has been for many, many weeks now, but I wanted to share with you today a bit of the history of United Methodism. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, on May 24th, 1738, experienced his moment of not conversion, but of absolute belief. John reluctantly went to a Bible study at Aldersgate, and at that Aldersgate experience, the Bible study, the time that he was spent there was reading from the Martin Luther's preface to the book of Romans. Not the book of Romans, but Martin Luther's preface to the book of Romans, which is kind of like reading through mud. It's very thick, very highly theological and intellectual, and it's not something that necessarily inspires and where one feels the presence of God. But for John, it did. John returned home and he wrote in his journal, which he wrote in prolifically. He wrote the words, "My heart was strangely warmed," meaning he, for the first time, felt the presence of God in his life. John was always nervous and anxious about his faith journey, but it was in 1738, in that moment, that he understood on a deeper level the love that God has for each of us in our lives. I can't pinpoint a moment in time at 8:45 on May 24th, 1738, like John can, where I came to understand in full knowledge the love of God in my life. I was blessed to grow up as a United Methodist in a home that took me to church every Sunday, and I was active in the youth program, and through college I worked at the church and then went on to study and serve in the church as well. But there was not a specific moment that I can pinpoint like John does, where I knew immediately. I think of wonderful moments like confirmation and ordination, where I felt the presence of God. And so I invite you today to take a moment in your life, take a moment of time this week, and think back on your spiritual journey. Where is it at what stage of life were you in? Maybe you have a specific moment when you can pinpoint that you felt the presence of God in your life to a point where your heart was strangely warmed. That is one of my all-time favorite historical moments in the life of modernity, because of so much of what Methodism has meant to me, but also to know of the journey that John had been on and continued on, and it was at that moment that changed his life and defined him within his own relationship with God, even more so than he had ever had before. So I invite you to think of those times, think of that moment or those moments when you have kind of been in awe of the presence of God. I believe that I felt that recently when we traveled to the Holy Land, and I was we were at the Garden of Gethsemane, and there's a beautiful, they call it a chapel of all nations, but it's more like a cathedral. It's absolutely spectacular. And I knelt down and touched the ground where perhaps Jesus knelt and prayed. And I couldn't help but feeling the absolute overwhelming presence of God. And it was at that moment, among all of the moments in the Holy Land, that I truly connected with that place and that experience and the love of God that I have, that's been given to me through Jesus Christ our Lord. John Wesley felt it, and I hope you have felt it as well. And if you haven't, I invite you to seek those relationships and those conversations and that commitment to have God, to feel God's love in your life. Blessings to you during this time and this beautiful stained glass window in remembrance of it. Come by and visit it. Read the plaque on the side. It's a wonderful story. Blessings to you.